Hello, my name is Tony. I've been asked by David to tell you that he requested this for his co-workers. So, David requested this for his co-workers. When I first saw Robert Wise's 1971 sci-fi flick The Andromeda Strain, I came away with two lasting impressions. The first being the eerie images of two lone figures in spacesuit-styled hazmat gear investigating a small desert town in which the residents were all dead, nearly all dead I should say. The second is a stark and resonating sense of the radical refocusing, a reliance on technology as our protector and saviour gets when that technology goes completely and insanely batshit. Based on the 1969 novel of the same name by Michael Crichton, both book and film share recurrent themes with his later works like The Terminal Man, Westworld and Jurassic Park. The premier one being that technology is great and helps us immensely until it isn't and doesn't. Then it's our worst fucking nightmare. For example, one minute you're having best sex ever with an android, the next is trying to blow your spleen out with a 6-gun. Downer. Wise, whose career was anything but predictable as he directed both The Sound of Music and Star Trek The Motionless Picture, was perhaps the right choice for this at the time, for he does a very good job of bestowing it with a vital documentary style look and feel. There's some utility of mocked up government documents, printouts and computer hardware and monitors with fuzzy green text to lend the illusion of realism to the proceedings. Sure, the tech looks prehistoric by today's standards, but the style and design of the production still has significant impact, with a faux authentic vibe. This is probably the director's most forthright and emotionally sterile work, but is nonetheless an effective and chillingly prescient techno-thriller. You could draw to some extent parallels with the events in the Andromeda Strain and the COVID-19 pandemic, because no matter how much faith we put in governments and technology to safeguard us and rescue us, no matter how much forward thinking goes on, gameplaying, laboratory testing, scenario activity, theorizing, when shit goes down for real, the machinery and the mechanics are sadly unprepared for that reality, and more importantly backing things up, regrouping and adapting to shifting reality when shit goes horribly wrong in unexpected blindsiding ways. And if that all sounds a bit doomy, I think it's fucking supposed to. The mechanism used to package and deliver the narrative of the Andromeda Strain involves Dr. Jeremy Stone, Arthur Hill, explaining events to a Senate Committee on Space Sciences. Before we go any further, I'd like to take the opportunity to remind you of the importance of subscribing in order to maintain the continued growth, health and welfare of the channel. Even more important, if you're able to do so, is to hit the thanks button and make a very welcome contribution to keeping this channel up and running and promoting the production of new content. Many thanks, much appreciated. Now back to our main feature. A US space satellite crashes to Earth near a small desert town in New Mexico. The two Air Force grunts sent to retrieve it lose contact with base after giving a garbled report that all the inhabitants appear to be dead, fearing that the satellite might have brought back some sort of alien organism. Now why would you automatically fear that of all things? An elite team of scientists, codenamed Wildfire, are activated. The team includes government stooge Dr. Stone, prematurely bald insurgent Dr. Mark Hall, James Olsen, an elderly pensioner Dr. Charles Dutton, David Wayne, and a middle-aged, chain-smoking, closet epileptic Dr. Ruth Leavitt, Kate Reed. First off, I gotta say, if this is an elite team at the forefront of saving the world from an unidentified alien virus, they don't inspire much confidence. The Fantastic Four, they fucking ain't. And from the off, they don't stop arguing, bickering and taking potshots at each other. Less the Beatles, more the Who, which is an okay dynamic if you're an edgy 60s rock band. Not so much if you're intending to cooperatively curtail a global cataclysm. Stone and Hall, a helicopter dropped into the town in hazmat suits to investigate. They find the residents dead, either they've dropped in their tracks or been driven nuts and committed suicide. They further find the blood of the victims has clotted into powder. The satellite is discovered in the office of a local GP, who had, in a less than considered move, decided to open it. Wouldn't happen these days, you wouldn't get to see a GP, whether you had a satellite with you or not, unless you booked a month in advance, by which time, one way or another, the crisis would be over, or you'd be long dead. They also find a recently born baby still alive and crying incessantly. Then Hall is assailed by a crazed, ranting old man, George Mitchell, who collapses in front of him, bleeding from his mouth. Satellite baby and elderly nutbar are transferred to the Wildfire facility in the Nevada desert, a 5-level deep underground superstructure packed full of labs and tech. It's been purpose-built to deal with any such outbreak, so the story goes. In the event of a virus or organism looking like it's going to escape from the facility, there's a fail-safe mechanism mechanism in the shape of a handy nuclear self-destruct process. Intriguingly, should the self-destruct trigger, it can only be stopped by one member of the team who has the only key to turn it off. Hall is entrusted with the key under the odd man hypothesis. What the hell is that? Well, it's a theory that an unmarried male will be more dispassionate under the circumstances and therefore make a more pragmatic decision whether to stop the bomb fulfilling its destiny or not. Personally, if I was unmarried, that would be a fucking good reason to keep on living, so I'm not really buying this hypothesis, which is further discredited by my suspicion that it was dreamed up by some lefty psychologist with an online degree from an imaginary university over a morning croissant and caramel latte at Starbucks. So to work then, the febrile four discover a microorganism in the satellite which they name Andromeda. Using a combination of electron microscopes, computer analysis, murdering lab rats and monkeys with wild abandon, and culturing the virus, they find it is inhaled and kills all biological life instantly by causing a blood clot in the brain, asphyxiation, and widespread clotting in the circulatory system. So how come the baby and the geriatric wacko have survived? Andromeda is crystalline in structure and transforms energy into matter or something, and it multiplies like a motherfucker. As data on the organism is generated at an accelerated rate, the computer system helpfully collapses, displaying a disturbing 601 code to indicate it needs a lie down. What, turn it off and switch it back on again? Meanwhile, messages have stopped coming in from central government, so Wildfire are unaware of any further progress on a decision to sterilise the stricken town with a nuclear bomb. The Wildfire team believes this should be done ASAP. Why have messages stopped coming in? Two engineers work tirelessly to find the answer, dismantling the communication system and printer to find out. As they've been conditioned to focus on wires, circuitry and electronic components, they miss the actual cause. A small scrap of paper has become lodged between the striker and the bell, which, when it rings, informs of a message coming in and activates the printer. This ain't been happening. It's the equivalent of when something electronic in your house doesn't work, like a toaster. First, make sure it's plugged in, you dick. You know, eliminate the simple stuff before you shove a knife into the slot and jiggle it about randomly. When comms is restored, the team find that the president has decided to hold off on nuking the town. Stone demands he is contacted immediately to order the go-ahead. Meanwhile, Hall discovers that Andromeda can only survive within a narrow range of human blood pH potential hydrogen. The baby's constant crying and hyperventilation made his blood excessively alkaline. Jackson, the deranged old coot, is an alcoholic whose favourite tipple is sterno. Sterno is an alcohol-based cooking fuel, and you're unlikely to find it featured in an optic at your local pub or club, although I doubt it tastes any worse than a tequila slammer. Naturally, I'd give it a go if the opportunity arose. Anyway, it made his blood too acid for Andromeda to live in. A jet performing a flyover of the town crashes, the pilot reporting that his oxygen mask was dissolving just before contact is lost. Andromeda is mutated into a form that dissolves rubber and plastic. Additionally, it's discovered that the organism feeds on radiation, causing it to multiply alarmingly. Wait a minute though, hasn't the president just been told to give the order to drop a nuke on the town? Ah, shit! Frantic call to central government to rescind the scorched earth plan. Phew, near miss or what? Then, this is what you get when you let some doddering old buffoon perform autopsies on dead lab animals. Dutton fucks it up and Andromeda escapes biocontainment, making its way through the Wildfire facility, causing the laboratory seals to start decaying and triggering the self-destruct, which means nuclear detonation, which will result in a massive release of radiation, which is Andromeda's meal of choice. Yummy! So what's going to happen is the nuclear explosion will provide more than enough happy meals and energy for Andromeda to transform into a super colony and eradicate all life on Earth. Well fucking done, Team Wildfire. Way to go! Sealed in level 5 with a 5-minute countdown underway, Hall must climb up the central core to reach a higher level, find a workstation, insert the key, and turn off the self-destruct sequence. Better get moving then, matey. Slight problem though, the defense system in the core fires lasers at any intruder, cutting them to shreds. Oh dearie me, how will it all pan out? Well, considering we see Stone at the outset of the film relating his story to a Senate committee, I think we're safe in making an educated guess on that. Cutting edge and futuristic for its time, the Andromeda strain hasn't aged well. The look is now archaic and the science that once felt impressively technical now feels a bit wonky. However, Wise and screenwriter Nelson Gidding, who had previously scripted Wise's peerless supernatural shocker The Haunting in 1963, managed to deliver on some themes that have stood the test of time. Paranoid feelings and conspiracy theories engendered by a mistrust of big government are validated when it is revealed that the mission of the satellite satellite was to collect space organisms for potential use in germ warfare. How'd that work out for you? Juxtaposed with COVID, as easy as that, because there is still no clear explanation of where it came from and why, which of course results in people being people and thinking the worst, concocting all sorts of wild and woolly theories to fill in the gaping blanks. It did originate somewhere, China, and for some reason, warfare, and it's easy to imagine those in elevated positions in the corridors of power the world over know the whys and wherefores, whilst us poor dupes are left with paranoid conjecture at best. Looking back at the technology of the day and how it fucks up and can't cope makes you glad we've come so far, doesn't it? All you need to do is look at the news to see how well it's doing these days. Yeah, right, how far we've come. But it's not just the tech. Wise deliberately didn't opt for big stars, feeling it would be to the detriment of the realism he wanted to inject into the film. Easily identifiable superstars like Redford, Newman, McQueen and Raquel Welch were not in his game plan, and the budget wouldn't accommodate them anyway. So he went for more anonymous everyman character actors with less stratospheric profiles, which makes them more human to the audience and their failures more acceptable, because they seem a bit more like us. None of them get on, they don't like each other, and they are an unlikely quartet of global saviors. Stone, the leader, is rigid and by the book, lacking imagination, and enthralled to government puppet masters who funded the wildfire facility primarily to pursue germ warfare development and scenarios. Hall is impatient, easily frustrated, a surgeon with a pragmatic and clinical mindset who doesn't like not being in control. Dutton is just fucking past it, pure and simple. And Leavitt, who hides her epilepsy, has impaired concentration, misses important data when screening, eventually having a full-blown grand mal seizure brought on by a flashing warning light. Revoke her fucking driving license now, this woman could be a bloody danger. So it's not just the tech that misfires and fails on its own. It has 8 helping hands to guide it along and bumble around with it. A science fiction fantasy then, in which the most fantastical thing is the successful aversion of a major global disaster. Provides some insight as to why and how COVID might have got so out of hand so easily. To conclude, it's a tense and absorbing piece complemented by an eerie electronic score from Jill Melee and smart, crispy cinematography by Richard H. Klein. Wise directs with a snappy, sure-footed documentary style and some inspired use of split and multi-screen techniques here and there. Ultimately, it was the starting point of Crichton's literary and cinema odyssey into chronicling the potential pitfalls of an over-reliance on technology as a gatekeeper at the jaws of disaster. Sometimes it's less a gatekeeper and more a blind tour guide ushering us right on in. Thanks for your time and attention. If you could see your way clear to sticking around, I would appreciate you hitting like, don't like, leaving a comment, subscribing. Plus, you could check my Patreon page for exclusive content and early access to forthcoming reviews, or drop a tip in the virtual gratuity tin via the thanks button down below. I really need the beer money. Don't make me resort to sterno abuse. Any help or support you can provide to the channel is greatly appreciated. I'll be making a return visit soon, technology permitting. Catch you later, pilgrims.